Hello, my friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and welcome to the full moon in Pisces 3 live stream. Haven't seen all of you in a while, so it's nice to see all of you stopping in here. Let us know in the chat box where you're coming from and how you're doing, and if you have any questions, and we'll try to take your questions today too. Today, I am joined by my good friend Debbie Stapleton, who I met a few years ago at the United Astrology Conference in Chicago, Illinois. So I'm very excited that she is here with me today. How are you doing, Debbie?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, it's been a really interesting weekend, but it's nice to see you face to face after so many years. Yeah, that was UAC 2018, correct?
Yeah. It's been a few years now, hasn't it?
Yeah. That was a pretty epic conference.
It was. That was my first astrology conference.
Yeah. Well, you were great because you were so um, engaged and you were talking to a lot of folks and interviewing. And yeah, you were just crushing that conference. It was great.
I was flipping the Leo switch a little bit, and I think at that point I had some kind of grand water trine in my chart that was going on,
Oh,
so
so it's
it was fun.
super social, connecting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
And you were doing some interesting things at that point too. You were taking a big test, I was
Oh,
informed,
that's
right?
right. Yes, that's when I did my big ESAR cap,
Yeah.
the certificate of proficiency. Yeah, because I had been a big autodidactic learner for so long, and I was like, I just want to somebody check me out. Like, what all these years of studying, like, it was just nice to get an international organization to sort of uh, test me. And I
Yeah.
met some elders. The late Chris McRae was one of my teachers for the ESAR consulting skills module, which was a real special treat. She was wonderful. But yeah, it was a really pivotal time. Uranus entering my 11th house.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear
So,
you. So you and I had some really nice conversations in the lobby at UAC, but tell me a little bit more about yourself, your journey to astrology, and where we can find you and what you've got coming up in the hopper.
okay. Yeah. Well, I guess for me, um, I kind of combine a few different modalities in my astrology, as I imagine a lot of folks do. I have a music background. So I'm a singer, I'm also a visual artist and a textile artist. So storytelling and creativity is a big part of how I connect and converse with astrology. At least I strive to anyway, because my clients can let you know how that's going. Um, yeah, and I also have a background in yoga and Ayurveda and also Western herbalism. I've studied medical astrology with Lee Lehman. And I also love magical astrology.
Mm,
So I sort of feel like um, astrological magic is the ritual and imaginal plane where a lot of these modalities come together so folks can truly interface and have a dynamic kind of co-creative relationship with the planets almost as well as persons, or at least attuning to those broad archetypal forces that shape our world. And yeah, I don't know if that sounded a little bit complicated, but it's just valuing, igniting the imagination and working in an imaginal storytelling realm, but also using nature as a teacher and
mm.
bringing natural components into what folks can do to have some balance and wholeness. And we sort of find that um, in the particular unique birth chart. Every chart has a really cool story to tell. So,
Well, and recently had a pretty big move across country to get maybe closer to those natural spaces, maybe to be able to channel some
yeah.
things, right? So you're out
Oh,
in
yeah.
the west coast of Canada, is that correct?
Yeah. We're on Vancouver Island. My partner and I moved there in 2011, originally from Toronto, where we had these big kind of busy rock and roll lifestyles. And we started to get really domesticated because we got two doggies. So it's essentially our family. So yeah, we went all the way across the country, got settled on Vancouver Island. That's where we did a lot of our yoga studies. That's where I did my herbal training. And then we moved to Montreal for 3 years. I think there was some Uranus stuff going on there too. And did 3 really interesting years in a very creative and dynamic and multicultural city. And then sort of felt like, okay, big city, I think, is out of our system now. And then we zigzagged all the way back to Vancouver Island amid the height of the pandemic. That really sort of drove home that we wanted to be back in the land that sort of felt like, I don't know, like a soul's home where we're both, my partner's Pisces rising, I'm Cancer rising, and something about being near the ocean and being close to the land. I just sort of feel like that year, and probably was this case for a lot of folks, is that it just brought a lot of things into stark clarity, like having to make really deep, quick decisions sort of on an instinct, which I would sort of feel like is the soul talking to you, like giving you a really strong message and directive, and just having to be ready to follow it for the long-term unfolding of whatever is to come. So
yeah, I agree. And you know, Vancouver Island has seemed to become sort of a hub for metaphysical practitioners on some level.
Oh yeah.
You know, a few of my friends have moved out there recently.
Yeah, like Ren Butler is here, the great archetypal astrologer. The astrologer Charm Torres lives out on Vancouver Island now. That's a big dream for her and her partner. And then there's the whole Astrology Victoria contingent, and they seem to be doing really well.
Friends of the show.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Dulcie and Tatiana were on the live stream a few weeks ago. So
I saw that. How wonderful.
We're excited
That's so
to be
cool.
With them.
There's something about this island. I don't know. It's really, I just feel like the land and the ecology is very dynamic, and it really can heal you. But it's living on a rock, and it has a certain energetic and a certain history, and it can kind of, there's some sort of like legends about it, like it almost like it decides if you're gonna stay. It decides for you if your roots are gonna plant, and you have to kind of go through a bit of a journey to attune yourself to it. I don't know. It's almost like, it makes me think about like relationships I have with my dog. It's like you aspire to have this a deep, soulful relationship with this wild, untamed kind of being, but there's something that that nature asks of you to come up to meet that relationship. It calls on you to be your best and your most authentic and centered, and that's a philosophy I have anyway.
Well, and there's definitely a spirit of a place, you know, like a loci, a genius loci is I think what they call it, like kind of the daimon or spirit of that place. And it sounds like I'm gonna have to take a visit out to Vancouver Island at some point.
Yeah, well, check out your maybe your relocation chart, see if anything gets pulled up to the angles, or for me it's Jupiter on the descendant. My relocated chart makes my Jupiter very angular. So when I come to Vancouver Island, it's like study, teaching. Jupiter rules the 9th house in my birth chart. So it's a thing. It's like, as soon as I get out there, it's, you know, all of those topics become a little bit more live. So it's wonderful. I'm happy to be there.
One of the things I've been noticing that you've been putting out there the last few years that I really enjoyed is you're quite an accomplished watercolor painter as well, and did a planetary series with your watercolors. So I've been enjoying that on your social media channels. And you recently started like a little bit of a rebrand of your website. Tell us more about what your new website is and where we can find you, and offerings that you might have for folks today.
Yeah, the new name that is the umbrella for the offerings is called Starfruit. Astrology, and you can find it. It's pretty easy, starfruitastrology.com.
Very
And
cool.
I'm on Instagram under holistic_astrology, but I think pretty soon I'm going to change that name over to match the domain of the website.
Cool.
So I had been under a bit of like a working title for several years that, I liked it, but it just didn't feel 100% fleshed out. And yeah, like based on the watercolor work, I started going in a little bit of a different or new direction with the watercolor art inspired by 70s psychedelic art, 70s sci-fi art. Like Jean Mobius Girard is a huge inspiration of mine. And I was like, there's something earthy and botanical in the vibe of how I do my astrology, but I didn't want it to be sort of like kind of a folksy, crafty sort of vibe. I was like, I want it to be like a little bit unusual, a little psychedelic, and a bit sci-fi.
Sure.
So the idea of star fruit is like the idea that we're sort of channeling the fruits of the stars,
Okay.
So doing magic or working with herbalism, it's like these celestial beings, they offer almost like a strange sort of unusual alien sort of fruit that nourishes our soul and ignites our imagination.
Nice.
So that was the vibe. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Well,
it's really fun.
check Debbie out at starfruitastrology.com, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good. I'm
I
checking in.
snagged that domain.
There you go. You got it. You didn't have to spend like $1 million to get it from somebody, right? Okay.
No.
So I'm checking on the chat box here, and we've got some people stopping by. We always have a very international crowd here that I'm always excited about.
Nice.
We've got Darren stopping in from the UK, or D. Hello, D. Nice to see you. Remco is here from the Netherlands. Dimfy is here from the Netherlands. A couple of Netherlands folks. Tanya's here from inside the house. Hello, Tanya.
Oh, hi.
Christopher stopping in from Denver, Colorado. Dina's here from Nyack, New York. Susanna, our friend, one of our friends from Finland, is here. So our Finnish contingency is here as well. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Check out Debbie's stuff. If you want to make a donation to the show, there's a little $sign on the bottom of your chat box, which is called a super chat or a super sticker. And that will highlight either a comment or a question that you might have. That's a new way since we reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, where you can support the work that we do here today. June is stopping in from Maui. She says that they eat starfruit frequently. So
I love it.
perfect. Yeah. All right, so Debbie, let's dive into this here today. Actually, before I start, one more housekeeping thing, folks. If you haven't seen the things that I've been putting out, I do have a webinar that's coming up called The Decans of Libra, and that's on October the 9th. And there is an early bird discount that's going on up until the 24th of September. So if you put the coupon code Libra20 into the place where it asks for coupon codes, you can get 20% off. I'm also doing a bundle for the Decans of Fall, which are Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. So you can sign up for all three at a discount as well. So check out the link for that in the description of this video or wherever you're viewing this content. And hopefully you'll join me for that. I had a really great time doing the Decans of Virgo. We had a nice group of people that were there, and I think it went really well. It was a lot of fun, and it was you folks know me. I cram a lot of things into tight spaces as far as like information. So hopefully I'll be able to provide value for you and help you see things in a new and interesting way.
I call that style high nutritional content.
Yes.
It's like a power ball of astrological information if you're getting lots of good nuggets in there.
I tell you what, I've been trying to feed the world, so to speak, with, like you said, high nutrition content. I have difficulty not putting a lot of information in something. I don't know. Thoroughness is something that I just like. Don't you have Jupiter and Virgo as well?
No, I've got
Oh,
Jupiter in Capricorn
oh, that's
conjunct
right.
the
That's right.
North Node, co-present with my Capricorn sun.
We have some Virgo connection, though. Is your moon at
My
Virgo?
moon is in
Okay.
Virgo.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a Virgo
So,
moon right on top of my Jupiter. Mine's at 7 degrees Virgo, and I
oh,
believe your
yeah,
moon is
it's
somewhere close to there. There you go.
5 degrees. There you go. That's a
So
great connection.
yeah, right.
We should
So
open
we're
a herbal supplement business or something. No, I'm just
for
kidding.
something practical, right? All right. So hopefully today we'll be able to give you your astrological vitamins and
Yeah.
the ripened fruit of this full moon. So, Debbie, any initial thoughts? I'm going to share my screen and we will
Oh,
take a
good.
look at this chart
Yeah.
and see what we've got. This is the chart of the full moon, which is happening on September the 20th at 7:54 p.m. Eastern time. Make your adjustment if you're on the west coast of Canada. That's probably, what, 3 hours earlier? Somewhere around there, Debbie?
Yeah. I think on the East, you're 3 hours ahead.
Okay.
So for us on the West Coast, that's 4:54 p.m.
Okay, gotcha. So we're looking at a 28-degree Pisces moon opposite the 28-degree Virgo sun.
Yeah.
Anything that sticks out to you right away?
Well, I sort of noticed that from a few angles, Pluto is really bound up in this lunation. And I also noticed that Mercury, who's slowing down and getting ready to go retrograde, is very trine Jupiter. So we've got Pluto, Earth trine with the sun, sextile with the moon. And Mercury, when Mercury goes retrograde in about 6 days from the moon, Mercury will be pretty square that Pluto. So I just sort of noticed how Pluto sort of almost snuck under the radar and is very entwined with this lunation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Um, the Mercury Jupiter trine definitely was something that stuck out to me in my notes here. That's a good catch on
Mm-hmm.
the Mercury Pluto. That was something that I hadn't kind of highlighted, but it's interesting that we're going to have these two aspects simultaneously kind of happening.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these planets, Mercury and Jupiter, are actually the hosts of the two luminaries for this full moon. So
Yeah.
Mercury in Libra, right on Spica, actually a fixed star called Spica, which is a very
Oh, yeah,
fortunate
right.
fixed star. Kind of the concentration point of the harvest. But the only challenges I'm seeing with this is that, besides the square to Pluto, which definitely is an elephant in the room, is it's both of these planets are in aversion to their hosts. So we have like this kind
Mm-hmm.
of, not being able to see each of their hosts here, which could maybe lead to a little bit of confusion. Jupiter is in aversion to the Pisces moon
Mm-hmm.
and retrograde, and Mercury, being in the third decan of Libra, is in aversion to the Virgo sun. Now, one thing that I'm seeing, though, that I like, though, this is uh, a fortunate Mercury on Spica. But like you mentioned, I love that you are looking at the synodic cycles here too. This Mercury is slowing down, and we've already
Mm-hmm.
gone into what some astrologers would consider that shadow period, where we're going to be retracing some steps potentially. I think that one of the things I have as far as notes for this Mercury Jupiter trine is the third decan of Aquarius is really one of the things I like to do here on the show is like connect the decans with the tarot cards. So I
Mm-hmm.
pulled some cards here today. We've got, right? So
Look at that guy
this is third decan Aquarius, right? With the 7 of swords. And
absconding with the swords.
exactly. But Jupiter here, I feel like Jupiter here helps us to make harmonious partings. It's like saying, okay, it's time to leave the past behind. It's
Mm-hmm.
time to take a leap into the unknown, take with you what you've learned from these last experiences, And, don't be afraid to move forward. And Mercury is going to be, maybe trying to help here. We've got the Four of Swords for this Mercury decan, third decan of Libra, which is really the vibe I get with this decan is more about finding peace within chaos. Like it's more about how can you find inner meditative states that will help you to bring peace to your environment, rather than always having to search out a peaceful environment before you can feel safe or peaceful or secure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like it. Like that. It's interesting because the suit of swords in the tarot obviously is associated with, the air element, which in the zodiac is a bit more of a diurnal and active, outwardly seeking, proactive type of elemental energetic. And then it just sort of makes me think of like the advice I've heard a lot of astrologers. I remember Kelly Surtees was one, and Austin Coppock as well, like talking about when Mercury is slowing down and beginning to go on its sort of retreat or retrograde journey, it's like coming into phase with what Mercury is up to. Often we have to suspend the expectation that our typical solar, diurnal, waking, active, proactive consciousness that likes to propel forward and find solutions and get stuff done, we have to kind of make our peace with the fact that we almost kind of have to lie down like that figure in the Four of Swords and become more receptive and turn inward and allow insights to actually kind of come toward us. And really the only way that we can reach that kind of deeper intuitive understanding is that we actually have to kind of pull back and surrender a little bit and relax so that can be revealed, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think surrender is a great word for this lunation in general. That's something that I talked about with Sam Reynolds was on the show a few weeks ago. And,
Oh, yeah.
That was a theme that really came up when we were talking about Pisces and Virgo in general was, this ability to both refine things with the Virgo sun and really like figuring out what stays, what goes, what you're going to pass on as a legacy. That's some third decan Virgo type of experience. But then also knowing kind of when enough is enough, when you've done enough, when to release something into the world and say, you know what, I've done everything I can do with my skills, and now I have to let the divine finish it, on some level.
Yeah. I like that statement. Let the divine finish it. It's almost like when we back off and allow a little space, it's like it gives the space, for the mystery of life to come forward and complete the story. I think that's a great statement.
Yeah. A couple other things just about the luminaries in this chart that are coming up. The two cards that we have for the sun and the moon are the 10 of Pentacles and the 10 of Cups. So the 10 of Pentacles representing Virgo 3, which talks a lot about preserving things against the forces of entropy to be able to be passed on. Like it's talking about the form changing, but essence remaining. So like legacies, passing on inheritances, returning things to the earth though. I think of this almost like as a life well lived, and you've learned a lot of things. You've become a master, or you've had many journeys, and you're passing your wisdom on to somebody while at the same time your body is starting to contract, right?
That's beautiful because you see the elderly figure sitting in the card.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great because I think that's actually like a real tangible, instructive way that we can see matter transmuting into something spiritual. It's like all of that security that I built and that resource that I generated. It's like you can't take it with you. So we pay it forward or we return it to the earth. And actually, our very body is material that we turn to the earth at the end of
Absolutely.
that material cycle. So I think that's
Absolutely.
really great. It's so interesting how well you know, these little sort of images in the cards sometimes tell the
It's
story. Hey,
it's been a revolution for my astrological practice, being able to bring some kind of visual narrative into
yeah,
into play.
I
That's what
think
I
it's
think has been,
huge.
yeah, it's been the biggest benefit with working with clients too, because a lot of the times when we're working with these energetic forces, they can feel a little bit abstract.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are able to see a vision of it, it can make it more tangible. It can make it more like, I don't know, it can help realize it. It can turn that light bulb on some degree, you know? And
Yeah,
then
and I
you as a
feel
visual
like
artist do that as well, right?
symbol and pictures. Um, I really feel like they live in us. They become something embodied. Like I feel like, our dreamscape and the images. Like often I kind of feel like the quality of those tarot pictures is that they are a little bit enigmatic and kind of they're very open, and yet they do have meaning. And that's a lot like our dreamscape. And I sort
Mm.
of feel like the fruit of the dreamscape are pictures that when we sit with them and meditate on them, they become soul nourishment. It's like
Mm.
something from the soul, which I feel is very Piscean, feeds, and then there's an uptake in your consciousness, and it informs your sun and Virgo analytical diurnal consciousness. So you're actually able to digest and metabolize meaning from something pictorial. So then it
Yeah.
actually becomes something embodied that lives in you. An understanding that lives in you, I think, is something that you take with you for the rest of your life. Um, and that's what's so unique about astrology is like when we do this thing, like you say, like bring these pictures to life. It's a way that we can get into that and
Mm.
offer meaning through pictures. So yeah, I feel really passionately about that
Yeah, and
point that you shared.
Dina has a really great comment that says someone once said that only the dog can see the elderly man in the Ten of Pentacles. He is a spirit only.
Oh,
Right? That's kind of blowing my mind a little,
wow.
right? Yeah, because you can
I
see
love that.
there's two little dogs down here, and we got this old man sitting here. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I like that,
That's
Dina.
awesome.
To piggyback off what you're saying, Dina, is that um, the next decan in the series is the first decan of Libra, which shows the figure Mott at the entrance to the underworld. So it's this passing out of the body, like you were saying, and into spirit. So I really like that. Um,
Mm.
so let's take a look at one more thing about that sun in Virgo. The daimon or spirit of that decan is Hestia. So there were
Mm.
spirits associated with each of these decans,
Mm-hmm.
and Hestia was the keeper of that sacred flame. So being able to
Mm.
pass on that wisdom that changes form, but the essence remains. So I thought that was a really interesting like correlation with this as
Wow.
well.
Well, that's really interesting too, just like Virgo in general. Like when we think about Earth element, it's the mutable Earth sign of the zodiac. So the entire like symbol of the zodiac sign is one of change and process. It's the most fluid, shifting, shape shifting version of Earth that we have. So what do we do with that type, like that kind sort of ground, like what takes place there? It's the
Yeah.
understanding of the you know immutable quality of earth, and yet the mutable dynamic of how we can work with it for mastery or materialization. So, and it just sort of seems really like apt that the greatest message that you receive at the end of the walk through Virgo is that letting go, or it
Mm.
transmuting into something um, spiritual, which
Yeah.
is so cool.
I love that. I love it. One physical manifestation of this energy that I've been experiencing over the last few days is I've found that there are uh, these DVDs that you can buy like off of eBay that have literally hundreds of old, out of print, ancient books on them
Mm.
that you can have like digital copies of. That most of them are in the public domain. So there are people that compile these books and sell them. And I went on like a binge of like, oh man, I don't know if these are going to stay on here, so I need to buy all them to preserve them against the ravages of time, you know. So it was very literal of like trying to like, you know, figure out how to collect that knowledge to be able to pass it on eventually. It's really interesting, really great. There's a guy on there. His name's Stu. Like you should check him out. Like I'm trying to remember what username he is, but he's really great. He's located in the UK, and really great customer service and stuff. I just wanted to give him a shout out because um, lots of old books on alchemy, mythology, astrology, magic. So it's a great
Ah,
resource out there if people are looking to dive through some of these old texts.
how
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, fun, huh? Then somebody on this channel, I don't remember who it was, but somebody from the UK turned me on to that and said, you know, there's all this stuff out there that these old books if you're interested in it. And I was like, oh yes, yes, please. So thank you for people bringing me some of that awareness of that knowledge that was out there. We have
Mm.
another cool comment here. Remco is saying that Rachel Pollack in 78 Degrees, which is a great tarot book, also connects the old man to Odysseus coming home after his travels. Only he is only recognized by his dogs.
Oh, I love that.
Pretty cool.
That's wild because, yeah, I guess if he had aged, the dog would still recognize his essence or his
That's
spirit.
right. There you go. I love it.
Well, this is really threading some personal stuff here in about what has just happened for me. We just
Yeah,
have
yeah.
taken, we're not actually at home at the moment. We're in the interior of BC where
Hmm.
we drove over sea, Pisces, and land, Virgo, to rescue a pup, a little dog.
Hmm.
And um, it's just really interesting. We're just spending this weekend like bonding and connecting with this uh, dog who's like a new family member, but just sort of awakening to, I don't know, just like that spiritual bond that you can have with dogs.
I was meditating on your journey to adopt a new family member, and
Mm,
I was thinking about this decan of the moon that we're seeing with Pisces,
mm.
which I really think is sort of associated with almost like a crusade type of energy, you know, where it's
Oh, like
like
a
the
pilgrimage of some kind too.
definitely well
Mm,
like a sacrifice for
mm,
something that you believe in, right? It's that
mm,
Mars ruled decan. Remember we were talking. Austin Coppock was calling it a cup of blood, where it's like,
mm-hmm.
what are you willing to give up for your dream? You know, what are you willing to do to manifest that ideal, you know, family rainbow, you know, at the end of the rainbow type of experience,
Oh my gosh, Spencer,
right?
that's like my partner and I, and then we have these two pups now. So that's almost like the little
There you
kids.
go.
Like the whole philosophy was we lost a little doggy and she passed away in 2018 and left a little bit of a dog size hole in our family. But, you know, the time had to be right to invite someone back. And some interesting chance events, actually, kind of along the theme that we talked about in the beginning about that surrender and let, um, you know, the divine finish the work or the story, is that we had been searching actively, proactively to find a dog. And then when we kind of just let go, a rescue agency contacted us and said, we
Mhm.
think we actually found a dog that's right for your profile. Yeah. And
Nice.
so the dream is, you know, having, you know, this little family member and wanting to obviously rescue a dog that's in some like peril because there's so many dogs out there that need homes.
Sure.
So it's interesting is when we rescued her, Venus in Scorpio was right on the ascendant when we met her. And her tail is kind of like a Venus in Scorpio story. It's like this little dog who has not had a steady home. When they first received her, she had a collar around her throat that was like so tight they had to cut it.
Oh,
So
no.
she's defensive. So
Yeah.
she's very martial, like she's really protective, and she's really suspicious of weird new people, but at the same time she's quite loving and bonded to us already. So it's been
Yeah.
interesting. Sorry if that was too tangential,
No,
but there were
no.
some
It's
essences and some of the things you're saying there that are mirrored in the story. So the sacrifice was, yeah, it was just like, uh, it was a bit arduous, and it was almost like a bit of a crusade. Just drive, patiently and intrepidly through the mountains to go find the right pup that
mhm.
seems to have serendipitously found us, so
Yeah.
to speak. And also
Well,
giving up these like ideas of, oh, you're going to have some ideal puppy that's going to be, like perfect, and you'll mold it and shape it. It comes with like a story that we have to let go of any preconceived ideas and like tune into what the dog actually needs, and that's actually a greater form of love than just spoiling or indulging the dog, if that makes
mm,
sense.
no, definitely. And it really ties in with the moon being at the degree of Venus's exaltation, which is like being able
Oh.
to receive, like you were talking
Hmm.
about the surrender and letting go and receiving. And really, I think one of the differences between Pisces and Virgo, I think, is uh, like you said, being okay with an imperfection and saying, you know what,
Hmm.
it's unconditional love. I think it really is. I
Mm.
think the
Hmm.
essence of Pisces, and especially that exaltation degree with Venus. Um, so I think that, yeah, it's really fascinating to see how these things manifest in our everyday lives. I like it when people share those tangential stories, because I mean, really, instead of just getting the abstract kind of experience, we
Mm.
can see it
Hmm.
and start to. That's one of the skills I think is really important, is being able to recognize the symbols as they're playing out in real time. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
one other thing that I've been doing this week. Um, so first of all, I want to preface with Pisces in the Thema Mundi was on the ninth house cusp, which was
Mm.
sort of associated with pilgrimages to find
Oh.
higher purpose and meaning, right? So I
Right.
think we may all be going on some sort of pilgrimage, whether it's literal in your case or metaphorical
Yeah.
internally, in some other cases, to find some meaning, to infuse meaning into the physical form or the physical process that we're bringing to completion. And one of the things
Mm.
that stuck out to me is, it's no secret on this channel that I love sports, and I get made fun of sometimes about it, but to me, it's a spiritual practice, because I see like the court, the field, all of those things as a cathedral. I see it as
Yeah.
a place to be able to express or go beyond, maybe human limitations. There's all sorts of dramas that are wrapped up in being an athlete,
Mm.
and uh, I find a lot of inspiration in that. And I've been watching inspirational sports movies this week. So I dragged my family, or at least part of them that would participate, into watching both Hoosiers and what was the other? Rudy, which actually is
Oh,
the
that's a
same
sweet
screenwriter,
movie. Oh, is
right?
it?
Same
Oh.
screenwriter, this guy named Angelo Pizzo. This is funny. He has. I always looked up their charts to see what essence are they channeling when they're making this inspiring art. And Angelo
Hmm.
Pizzo, who is a screenwriter for both of those movies, has Jupiter at 15 degrees Cancer, which is the maximum exaltation degree of
Whoa.
Jupiter, and
Aha.
and also has a sun at about 10 degrees Leo, which is that victorious, the Six of Wands card in the tarot, the victory parade, right?
Very
So,
nice.
so he's channeling these inspirational, victorious stories. And, that Rudy story really stuck out to me as far as this lunation is concerned, because we
Hmm.
had an imperfect person, this guy, Rudy Rudiger, who was barely 5'6" and wanted to play at Notre Dame, right?
Hmm.
And, had to go through all of these challenges and crises to make it to his dream. And
Mm.
he had like a body that wasn't the traditional body. He had gone through trauma, but eventually, through his faith and through his unshakable hope and devotion, he was able to realize that dream. And I think that there's something beautiful about that. And I think that there's something beautiful about this lunation that may speak to that same kind of energy. And one other thing I wanted to add is there is definitely wide swings of emotion in the third decan of Pisces, because in addition to the dreams like Rudy had that he was able to manifest, there's also dreams that fail. So there is the highs and the lows, the agony and the ecstasy. But what I wanted to say is that it seems like your dog is going through releasing an old narrative, an old trauma response, right?
Oh my God, I have head to toe goosebumps that you said that. Keep going with your thought, though.
Well, and one of the things that came up in the I-Ching reading that I did for today was, and we can get to that in a second, but the gist of it was, it's time to let go of the old story. It's time to let go of the old pain and move forward. And I see that with this Mercury-Jupiter trine saying, you know what? Yes, it's been hard. Yes, there has been difficulties, but now it's time for us to move forward and really cultivate that quality of hope. And I wanted to tell you just briefly that story. The daimon with Pisces III is called Elpis, which roughly translates to hope. And Elpis was what remained in Pandora's box after all these horrors and terrors.
That's right.
Right? So we have this like little kernel of hope that helps us to deal with its opposite, which they called morose, which translates to doom. Because, one of the things that Austin talks about is in this decan, it's sort of like we realize that everything is going to pass away, right? Everything is, and there can be these feelings of, as a human being, what's the point sometimes if we know we're going to die, or if we know, it's not going to last forever, why would we do anything? And part of it is that hope. There's some stories about in Prometheus Bound where they said that Prometheus actually put hope in the box so that humanity wouldn't get this like listless,
apathy or
apathy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's a real key with this full moon in general is how do you hold on to that inspiration and that hope? And I know for me, I had some real emotional moments this week because I don't know, we've all been going through a lot of transitions lately with like you said, the pandemic that brought reality to our doorstep. You and I are roughly in the same age range, and we're coming to terms with middle age, I think, and the changing in our own bodies and our own lives. And after watching Rudy and Hoosiers, I got really emotional because I was like, I want to do something great, like I have a Leo ascendant. And I'm like, how do I, and it wasn't for my own greatness. It was more about how can I inspire people the way that person did? And how can I pass on a legacy of inspiration that will live beyond me, which is very Virgo 3. So it's really interesting to see when we tap into these energies, that when you become aware of those symbols, you can see them playing out in real time and connect.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's wonderful too, because it helps to have, some meaning or even craft our own mythology amid what seems like senseless chaos. Right. And I don't know, I kind of feel like that's a little bit of the resonance of Pluto wending its way into what it is that we are, working through or consciously aware of on this lunation, is that those, mortalities, death, like we said, culling and needing to make, firm choices in light of the inevitabilities of life and how very little we actually can control, but lifting up out of that, sort of feeling of needing to always be in control. So like you're saying, like if everything is just going to come to an end and that there are some undeniable hard truths at our doorstep that we have to wrestle with, if that's the case, how can we rise up and still have some sense of hope and sense of meaning? Because what else are you going to do? You might as well
Exactly.
go full Jupiter.
Exactly. You don't have any choice, really. I mean, if you're going to
Right?
continue in on these incarnations, you have to be able to tap into that one way or the other. You have to find meaning, even if you're creating it on some level, for yourself. Like, I mean, a lot of people will ask, well, what's the meaning of life? And it's like, well, it's on some level, it's what you make it mean, I think
Yeah. Well,
that's
even
something to
when you were
consider.
like, even when you're saying like that desire, that urge, like welling up in your heart to do something great, like
Hmm.
to be inspirational, Jupiter,
Sure.
have some kind of sense of legacy, like what we're talking about with that third decan of Virgo. I feel like, and that's the beauty of being an astrologer, is the kind of conversations we can have with folks, is that meaning is yours to craft. That's
Mm.
the creative force of your life. And you have your mythology, you have your great story. And um, the greatness that we have to offer is whatever color comes out of our particular soul in this moment. Like, our story might not be exactly like someone else's, but that doesn't mean that it isn't great in its own way. But the
Right.
greatness is that we feel the epic struggle. We know the hero's journey that we're often on, like
Absolutely.
us winding through the mountains. It was like pouring rain. It was super dangerous. We were trying to get to this like dog. Like, that's like one little example of like,
Yeah.
how this was playing out. But
Well, and one of the things that, to piggyback off your point, is scale does not is relative. I
mm,
think, this that Rudy movie really speaks to that, because Rudy didn't go on and, like, he wasn't a dominant, like, all time great athlete. In his mind, though, he said, I want to just play in one game, and one, just have the chance to
mhm,
participate. So we can apply that to other things in our life. It doesn't have to be sports either. Like, you can find inspiration in saying, well, maybe I have committed to being a caretaker, and like you've committed to being a caretaker for this dog, or maybe you have someone in your family that needs your support, or something of that nature, or maybe it's like overcoming a personal demon or something of that ilk.
mhm, mhm.
And those can be personal epic journeys as well. It doesn't have to be, having this epic, quote unquote, legendary public victory. It can be
Right.
something where, if you've overcome things, then you have that relationship between you and your soul, and
Yeah.
whether you overcame it or whether you didn't,
And it could be, it's nourishing and it's meaningful and it has substance and it matters, even if it's a private thing that you go
Right.
through and the
Exactly.
world never even sees it. But if you are so inclined, sometimes sharing it with the world or even just sharing it with those around you, I mean, that's how I don't know, kind of feel like that's like the key. It's like, if you really are authentic and true to your journey in your sphere and your scope of life, and stay true to your heart, you never know, a la exalted Jupiter, whose heart you're going to light on fire. Like, who's going to
Right.
watch that and go, oh, uh, I'm going to do that my way over here.
Right.
I just sort of feel like if we all just do that, um,
Well, and I tell you, that just blew my mind, seeing that Jupiter in that screenwriter's chart, because
yeah,
the stories that he writes are ones that, you afterwards, you're like, oh my God, I can run through a brick wall right now. Or so, it's very
yeah,
much, inspiration, merit based on the actions that you take, and having faith in the journey. And all of those
mm,
things to me are very Jupiterian, about what are you doing that's going to bring honor to your story and honor to your experience. Being of the diurnal sect, right? Whereas Venus
yeah,
is, as a benefic, is a little bit different. That's more about how do you become open to receive the good that comes to you. You don't have to
mm-hmm.
do things with Venus. It doesn't mean you can't do things. It just means that it's more about becoming receptive. And that may be one thing that's challenging right now, because Venus is in Mars's nocturnal home, is we may
Yeah.
feel like we have to pursue when in situations that we maybe need to open up and receive.
Yeah, and there's some stories there of worthiness,
Yeah.
because I think folks can doubt their worthiness of receiving love or deservedness,
Yes.
and that's
Absolutely.
something intrinsic that I believe, of course, we're all worthy. But like that whole thing you were saying about getting rid of the old stories or the old pain, there might be some resonance there that's getting rooted up out of the Plutonian dirt to
Yes.
remind us that,
Bringing that Mercury Pluto square into the play,
yeah.
right? You know,
And
some self-doubt maybe.
there was something else that you said too, just to circle back around to the sport thing.
Hmm.
Um, when you were talking about like how inspiring it was to watch that story, it sort of made me think about, so this is really nice about like having conversations, is that something that you maybe just sort of take for granted that's like right under your nose, you can kind of think
Hmm.
about it. It's like I kind of feel like that's what's so exciting about watching sports, is that's what you're watching the intensity and journey and dedication and transformation of the few little players running in the field, but then this whole communal collective is like roaring and their hearts are soaring and they're cheering and they're participating in that from that inspirational spectator cheerleader perspective. I have the same like appreciation for mixed martial arts, MMA. It's the
Hmm.
same thing. It's like astrology and MMA go together for me. And it's the same thing. It's like you see the heart and the struggle and the triumph of these very martial, also like very Mars and detriment characters
Yeah.
sometimes, like
Oh yeah.
folks that had a bad start and they found martial sport to channel their martial intensity and then use it constructively. And for me, I guess having Mars and Scorpio, I just love those Mars triumph stories. Is that Mars could have put me on the outside of society and made me a danger and an outlier to myself and others, but they found a way to transmute it and turn it into a story of triumph that we all get to participate in together. And those, I just feel like the contribution of those, you know, sports or martial arts, they teach us a lot if we look through, I would say, a philosophical lens, but you can even go look at them through an astrological lens as well.
Yeah, Debbie. Finally, someone is on the same wavelength with me on
Okay,
this.
well, maybe you need to have another
I've
chat
had.
about these.
Oh man, I'll tell you, you encapsulated that feeling really, really well because I think that it's a fleeting moment that we're all participating in as a crowd, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is the culmination of someone's struggle. You know, like what you don't see is everything that led to that moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that to me gives
Yes.
me chills. That gives me chills over and over
I
again because we
know.
it's not just the competition itself. It is every sacrifice that that person has made to get to that point, and can they go beyond their limits? And sometimes what they are learning is they learn through failure. So it's not just about victory. It's learning
No.
humility through failure sometimes too, through losing. And
Yeah.
I think that's just as beautiful as the victory part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Takes a lot of heart to be willing to hazard losing everything or falling on your face, but at least you're in the arena of life.
right.
It's like you could stay safely on the sideline and never hazard losing anything at all, but then you will not be in the God's game of
Hmm.
feeling, the glory of tasting what um, you could achieve, even just the
Totally.
thrill of trying.
Yeah, exactly.
you
Participating,
know,
right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that there's a lot of wisdom in just the journey versus the payoff, right? Like saying appreciating the steps that you took to get there, rather than getting fixated on the end result.
yeah,
That's sometimes where the greatest wisdom is. Debbie, we've got a couple comments here, and then we'll wrap it up for you. I know you got to get back on the road, back home.
yeah, for sure.
Tanya saying you all know that Spencer's book addiction is legit. At least DVDs take up much less space. Okay, that's true. Feel called out. That's true. It's
Yes.
I
But that's like that late Virgo thing. Like you're talking
yeah.
about like all of this knowledge that's been collected on this like antiquated technology that's just like on the verge of like decaying and falling apart, or there's never going to be a machine that'll ever play it again. And it's sort of like, oh my God, I need to just like save this and catch this before it like decays into
Yeah.
oblivion. I mean, I don't
Totally.
know. I felt the urgency, but yeah,
Well, I was
yeah,
just my
books.
mind was blown today. Like I prefer a physical book because I like the tangibility of it,
Sure. Yeah.
but the opportunity to literally purchase roughly 2 to 3 thousand books digitally on like 10 DVDs for maybe $60 was just too much. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to read all these in a lifetime, but at least they'll be somewhere where I can protect them. And if there's a little nugget in like one of these that gives me a realization it was worth it, that I could pass on. I tend to be
Is
when I
there,
what's
sorry,
that?
didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just
Yeah,
curious if there was like something in your chart with the faces or some image of being like an archivist or a
absolutely.
protector of,
Yeah,
can you,
it's Thuban. It's Thuban. So there's a fixed star at 7 degrees of Virgo, which your moon is close to,
oh,
right?
dude,
Which
yes.
is the dragon that is guarding the Garden of Eden and the golden apples,
Oh.
and so it's a dragon that is like hoarding things or knowledge, protecting immortality. So what I've had
Hmm,
to learn is that I can collect things, but I have to keep passing them on. I can't just
right.
let them stop with me. So my motivation now is I am collecting this wisdom and this knowledge to be able to pass on, hopefully, whatever I've learned to future generations. Like, we've got, these types of talks that people will be able to look at and hopefully benefit from.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Are you a collector at all, Debbie?
I do have collector tendencies. Yeah, I think I am a little bit of an animist. I always think that things have a bit of a soul or a
Hmm.
consciousness, and I'm also practical because
Right.
I hate getting rid of things and then later needing to rebuy it. But at the same time, you can't have your house be a repository of what if objects.
Yes, yes. That's my attic right now. I definitely need to
Right.
go through and Virgo my attic.
And
Um,
Pluto it a little bit too. Pluto's just like, what can we throw on the compost?
yes,
Right.
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
just peeking out here to see if the pup is here.
Sure. Do we get to meet your new family member here? Um,
Yeah, I think she might be out for a walk. One second.
while Debbie
Oh,
is looking
anyway,
for
I
the
don't
the
think she's
pup,
around.
I wanted to acknowledge Remco. Thank you for the super sticker. Remco donated to the show here with a little super sticker of a little puppy. So thank you, Remco, for that.
Oh, that's
Appreciate
so
that.
sweet.
Dimphy says, funny, I've adopted a 10-year-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier, which means
Oh,
I can't stay with my daughter in Leiden. Oh no. Sacrifice,
oh,
but still with a lot of benefits for us all, including the cats. Yeah, so you had
oh.
to give something up for your dream and for your vision, so that fits, Dimphy. June says an extreme infusion of Saturn and Pluto, potentially bringing a lack of hope, and a what's the point energy. Yeah, and we have to overcome that because we had that Saturn Pluto early in the pandemic, and hopefully, I mean, I hope we're starting to come out of it. I mean, it still feels like there's challenges for sure. But yeah, we have to hold on to that hope as that Pandora's box keeps becoming, releasing all the
Mm-hmm.
dangers. Let's see. Yeah, we just have some really nice comments talking about, the Buddha, deeply respecting the reality of suffering. Jody is talking about, yes, Jody, I agree. And Dina is saying at least we are starting to honor the athlete's mental health as well. I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
I agree. That is a big conversation, and don't get me wrong, folks. I completely understand that the professional sports, especially in America, can be almost like a industrial complex where we're churning out, things with sometimes treating people and dehumanizing them. But I think that in anything, there's always like some kind of balance we have to strike between finding beauty and grace within it and acknowledging that it isn't perfect and that there's things that it can do better. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Who do we have here on the screen here?
Oh, this is Maya.
Hi, Maya.
This is our Venus and Scorpio pup that we rescued yesterday, that we had to drive over land and sea through
Right.
storm.
This is
the
golden child, right? The golden fur baby.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
She's
Maya,
great. She's really affectionate, but part of that story you're talking about like rewriting old stories or old patterns associated to like love and worthiness. She has separation anxiety. So
right.
we need to make sure that we're not over giving her too much of affection so that she doesn't learn how to self-regulate.
Sure.
So that's going to be our little project.
Well, Debbie, do you have a few more minutes? Do you have like 5 more minutes for us here?
Yeah, we could do 5 more.
Okay.
That's fine.
So just a real quick thing for those of you who are looking for the last quarter. We have a last quarter moon on the 28th, where we're going to be seeing the moon in Cancer squaring the newly ingress sun into Libra. So maybe some challenges with some imbalances potentially in our domestic situations, how we receive nurturing, equality in nurturing and giving, love versus receiving. So that's something to keep your eyes out for. And then there's going to be a new moon on the 6th of October at 13 degrees of Libra. We'll do a new live stream for that. I have a special guest, Melissa LaFara from Energetic Principles, who's going to be coming on to talk about that.
Lovely.
We'll talk about the Mars Cazimi, Pluto stationing direct, Saturn stationing direct, Mercury Cazimi around that period of time. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Melissa will be on October the 1st. And I just wanted to finish off today, Debbie, with talking about 2 things. First of all, we have the cricket that was an animal that came up for this.
Right.
Right, which symbolizes incredible good luck, which is a positive thing about singing in the dark. So even though things might seem dark, like having faith, singing your song, releasing the past to embrace the future was another theme that came up with the cricket. And it also spoke about letting go of emotional baggage. And in this, there is protection that allows you to leave a certain situation. So all of those themes coming up with the cricket, being able to leap forward. And the I-Ching that we got today was number 47, which translates to oppression, exhaustion, being restricted, hardship, adversity. This is a test. I think this is a test of our character where the world may feel like it's conspiring against you. You may feel a little tired, a little burnt out. But your positive attitude and your faith can see you through. There was one changing line. It was called oppressed by creeping vines. It says, this is the oracle, he is anxious and perplexed. He says to himself, if I move, I will greatly regret it. Yet if her request, yet if he repeats and sets out, good fortune comes. Sorry, I can't read my own writing sometimes. So this is really speaking about a time of oppression coming to a close. Yet people are hesitating because of fixating on the memory of the difficult times. So like your dog, right? Thinking about the trauma that they've experienced but they're with you, a loving family where that story is in the past, right? So it's going to take time to be able to maybe transition, to release that attitude.
Yeah, that's a really good message for folks to hear too, with the whole pandemic thing that's happening, is that, I think it may take a while as things start to get sorted out and we start finding a way back to the new normal, to remember that we're not in the same situation we were when this frightful situation first began, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like putting a toe in to starting to see some progress and things getting better, but then maybe still having some fear,
Yeah.
I know it's just the elephant in the room. We're all
navigating
it.
I'm struggling with that for sure.
Yeah,
like I have a very heightened sense of self-preservation and being able to rejoin society is like you said, a little tiny toe in the water
Yeah.
here and there. And if you know the shit doesn't hit the fan, then you can like take a little further
Right.
dip, you know. So yes, not losing hope, and it's changing to a hexagram number 6, which is actually called conflict, contention, arbitration, demanding justice, speaking out. And this may be about opposing interests. I think that through our faith, we may come to an experience where we do have a situation, a martial experience. I know we've got the Mars Cazimi coming up, where you may have to stand up for yourself, or you may have to find a way to find an equilibrium and a balance between your desires and someone else's. This is really going to be a theme as we move into Libra season. So the keys with this, opening lines of communication, establishing trust and reciprocity. Don't rush into conflict. Be prudent and wise and patient, and really listen. I think that's really the key here is maintain your hope. Recognize that there may be some situations that you may have to make some adjustments that come up. And as long as you communicate, I mean, this is really key, isn't it? Communication is so fundamental for alleviating misunderstandings in our life. So I think that that's something we're moving forward with as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's a great note to
we did it.
wrap it all up together.
All right,
Wonderful.
Debbie. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today, and good luck on your journey home. And I hope that everything works out well with your little pup there. And thanks for everyone that joined us today. Remember to check Debbie out at starfruitastrology.com.
Starfruitastrology.com.
Okay. And make sure that you hit that like on this video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe, turn on the notification bell. And we will see you again on September the 23rd when we talk about the astrology of October with our guest, Mercurius George. So keep your eye out for that. Yeah, he's a lot of fun. An old friend of mine. So anyway. All right, Debbie, thanks for joining me today, and take care, everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye.